Crank it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Gander the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right. Good morning, Patriots. Welcome to Strictly Speaking Unfiltered on a Tuesday morning. Good to have you. We are doing our second show now with the new platform. Provides my music a little bit differently. It plays the whole song of the intro, so we get that third verse, which is kind of cool. It gets me pumped every morning. I hope you do too. And a couple of different things about the way things present, but I thought all in all yesterday went well with respect to the learning curve and giving things. First of all, I've got to double check because I can never tell if I've screwed something up or not. Make sure, give me a shout out. Give me a hell yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin style. Give me a hell yeah if you're in the comments right now and you can hear and see me and everything is on the up and up and where it needs to be. That'll help me feel a lot better about things. I really, really hated Queen Mother loved the music. That's awesome. I really, really hated yesterday. My wife, who was home because of President's Day, she was off. She's a county worker. And she comes down and she goes, "You're muted." I was like, damn it. I muted my microphone to clear my throat during an interview clip I was playing or something, and I never turned it back on. And I come back in and all you see is me going, and yeah, so I hate that stuff. So, all right, there we go. I got a hells yeah from Jimbo. Jimbo, I was expecting to see you last night. In fact, there are a lot of people in this chat room that I was expecting to see last night at our little get-together, our Locals Unfiltered Insiders meeting that we had last night at our designated location. I think we ended up with 10 or 12 people there, something like that, who wanted to come and be a part of the war room planning team. But that's a little less than half, a little more than half of the people who were in the actual online meeting last week. So some of y'all, I understand it's life. You can sometimes get away, sometimes you can't. It's all good. But I really, really want to make sure that everybody is ready to go. So we had a really productive meeting last night. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. Hell yeah from Sally. Hell yeah from Tanya Rose. Hell yeah from number one Rhino. Got you, Bob, from B. Morgan. Marty says, I thought there was another verse. I think it's a 3-verse song. I think it's like a 2.5-minute song. Like I said, I made it out of AI. I told AI what I wanted, how I wanted it to sound, the kind of genre, what the theme was, and it did the rest. And it cranked out 3 verses, I think. So it's pretty good. Sharon said, too far away from me to get to go. Okay. Yeah, see, I got you. That's the point. I really don't want to throw stones at anybody. I understand not everybody can get out there. Bob placed a sticky note by camera, mic on. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's actually alerts on the screen. I just didn't see it when the video was playing. So I didn't see the alert part that, that I wasn't live again, or at least my mic wasn't on. It doesn't matter. I don't want to bog down the conversation with that stuff. Jimbo, sorry to miss it. That's all right, Jimbo. It's just we're counting on you, Jimbo, because we were talking about the things that shall remain unnamed until the night of our event. But you're doing one of them. We're going to have a new meeting, by the way. One thing we decided last night is we're going to do a new meet online, not an in-person one, but a new meet online in the locals community just for Unfiltered Insiders on Thursday. Not tomorrow, but on Thursday night, 9 p.m. And I'll put it on the locals community again. If you're already in the locals community, you're golden. If you are not, get there. Seriously, click that join button and become a member of the locals community first. That's free. It's just our own personal social media space, basically, where we can talk about things, share content, respond to content. And by the way, I need you to get in there too and do a little bit more of that. Most of the stuff that's being posted is being posted by me. I want you to get in there and react. And again, share and invite people to that as well. It's really important, really is, because this is where we're gonna post things that I don't need the blue sky, followers to be migrating over to my social media pages and commenting on these things and starting fights. This is really just a place for true supporters of our community, our conservative community. So that's why you really got to join it. Like I said, it's a free situation. And bring some content, bring some of what matters to you here in Ohio, because so much of what we do is Ohio-based, but also national stories, things that impact all of us. I want you in there, okay, to be more active. I see my phone notifications every day pinging, new comment on your video on Facebook, new comment on your video on X, new comment on your video on Instagram, or whatever it is that I've posted. But I'll post it to locals, and I'm getting very little new comment on locals. I want to migrate, like I said, a lot of what we do, at least, into the locals community. Can I share that? I wonder if I could just kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. I think I can, maybe. Probably. Before I do any of that, though, what I probably should do is this. It is the inspirational quote a day flip calendar, the 35-year friend that I have had on my desk, whether it be my teacher's desk back in the day, radio desk, or now podcast studio desk. February 17th, year of our Lord 2026. Winners expect to win in advance. Life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. If you don't have that PMA, if you don't have that positive mental attitude that I will win and I will get something done, the chances are very, very good you will not. Life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. That one is also an anonymous. I don't have a philosopher quote for that one, but I like the message and I do agree with it. It's kind of like this podcast. We were talking about this last night. It's a bear. It's a bear doing what I'm doing. But I'm on God telling you we will win. We will make this succeed. We will become what I want to become, which is far, far, far more influential as a community to impact what happens in our state and to impact what happens in Northeast Ohio, but to impact what happens in our country too. We're gonna have policy recommendations. We're gonna continue to talk to the biggest newsmakers in America. We're gonna talk to one of them today at 8:30. Tricia McLaughlin, who was on Fox News last night talking to millions, is going to come to talk to our small podcast this morning. Why? Because they know, the newsmakers know, that we are influential already, even size-wise, though we're just getting underway. But they come, we get United States senators and members of Congress, and now the senior advisor or a senior advisor to Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Tricia McLaughlin is going to be with us at 8:30. And we're going to talk about funding of DHS. We're going to be talking about this ridiculous list of ICE demands, for reforms, and so much more. It's going to be a really, really great conversation and an important conversation. That's why the headline, or the heading, if you will, of what I called the show, this episode of the show today, is Tricia McLaughlin takes no prisoners. And it's true. She's like me. And when I call, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to pull up the locals while we chat. She's like me insofar as she is unapologetic. She's unapologetic and takes no prisoners. She is going to call out the left and call out. Sorry, I'm logging into the locals community. For some reason, when I rebooted the computer earlier this morning, it looks like it logged me out. And I want everybody to be able to see this for yourself. But Tricia doesn't care who she offends. She is going to tell the truth, and she's going to defend the DHS. She's going to defend Kristi Noem. She's going to defend the president, and she's going to do it, like I said, without fear. She's largely like we are, unfiltered, and I love that. So anyway, here's the share. I wanted to bring up locals just so I can kind of push the point here. And where is it? There it is. Okay. So there's the locals page, just to kind of give you an idea what I'm talking about. I'll scroll it for a moment. Where are you, sir? There we go. Yeah, I'll scroll it for a moment. This was just a message to everybody to remind them about last night's Unfiltered Insiders meetup at our designated location last night at 7:00. And we got a lot done. I'll talk about in a moment. We got a lot of things done there, which was really, really good. But like I said, you'll see I'm kind of posting videos like this one, from previous shows. This is one when we were tearing apart Gene Wu for his negativity and his attack on whiteness, his suggestion that all minorities share the same common oppressor, white people. One person saw it and liked it. I post this on Facebook, and we'll get a few hundred. Post this to another one, Sharia Free America. That's just another clip from the show. So is this. A lot of them are videos that I'm posting, like I said, from the show. The reason those look the way they do, because these are optimized for size on your smartphone, as you can probably figure out. That's why it's all vertical. So on the desktop screen, it doesn't look visually appealing, I suppose, but it's really for the smartphone. And this is, of course, one of the Bob France Road Rants videos that we did on yesterday's show, before I actually did yesterday's show, about the teachers running wild and about how they can possibly expected to enforce rules. Can I play it? I can probably play it.
Let me have a quick conversation with teachers. And I speak as a former teacher, a lifetime ago, but I spent 6 years as a classroom teacher. And I want to ask you something. Do you have rules in your classroom? Does your school have rules for behavior in the hallway, in the bathrooms, in the auditorium, in the cafeteria? There are rules to be followed, right? So tell me something, my fellow teachers. If you're encouraging your kids to go outside and protest against the people who enforce the rules, to protest against law enforcement in favor of people who broke the rules, how do you expect your kids to come back into the building after it's over and follow your rules, the school's rules, societal rules? Don't you think you're sending them an awfully mixed message? Let me know. Let me know in the comments.
And on Instagram, people did let me know in the comments. And on Facebook, they let me know in the comments. But here in our space, our locals community, one comment. See what I'm saying? I want to get you all involved in here in our own locals community. So I'm posting videos and, clips of the show. I'm posting some other, let's see, just a story. What's this one? All right, that was an insider's introduction to your specific personal viewing of the Kurt Schlichter interview, because, like I said, I made that available to the Unfiltered Insiders, the paid subscribers, for the first 4 days before we shared it with the rest of the viewing public, if you will. This is the meme here that I posted right after the Super Bowl and the halftime show. This is a clip from the newsletter, or a piece of the newsletter. Anyway, you get the point. Most of the posts, in fact, I think all of the posts here, except there we go. There's the first one from somebody else. Fed Up Granny got in and posted about election fraud, which was that was the stuff that's going on and being investigated in Fulton County, Georgia. So there you go. But pretty much the rest of them, as I continue to scroll, are from me. Oh, there's another one, Fed Up Granny. So me and Fed Up Granny are doing the two-step here. So the point is, I want to get you in. I want to get you in, and I want this to be our social media gathering place. Doesn't mean you have to only go here, obviously, but make this a part of your browsing when you're popping around from Instagram to Facebook to X or whatever. Go on into the locals feed, and if you see a story, as you're just reading news stories or what have you, if you see anything that is of note that you would post on your own social media page on your, the bigger platforms, come in here and share it on ours as well. And everybody make sure you have your notifications turned on so you can see that we're having a discussion of these things in the locals community. So that's all free, obviously, just to be a part of that. Then if you want to be an unfiltered insider and be a paid subscriber and supporter of the show, then you'll be invited to things like our meet last night in, again, I'll say our designated location. I don't need people to know where we meet. It's none of their business unless you're an unfiltered insider. But we got a lot done yesterday. I was very, very happy about that. And I want to say thank you to everybody that was there. I probably can't remember everybody's name, but so I probably should name nobody, but Mark and Shannon and Christine and Sally and John and Connie and Sarah and Macromia. Now I'm saying his name right, by the way. Macromia. I got it figured out. Macromia was in the house last night, and he said it's not macromia, it's macromia. Yeah, Charlie wasn't there. Yeah, Charlie, the politically incorrect mechanic, wasn't there. So I was a little disappointed to see that lack of support, lack of desire to go out there and do what needs to be done. I'm poking fun at him because I'm trying to see if he's in the chat room right now. He's not. I'm poking fun at him because he was working hard last night. That's the reason he didn't come. Charlie, the politically incorrect mechanic, would have been there. But at any rate, a lot of the folks who were there last night are in the chat right now, as are some other folks. So Fungelic and who else? B. Morgan and Roz and Charlie G and Janie, hockey player Mike. My regulars are all up in the house. Liberty Bell, Queen Mother, Jacqueline, DB Jones. Oh, DB Jones. I think DB Jones. DB Jones, are you the D Jones that has been emailing me? And if so, I apologize. We need to get together and we need to talk in some capacity or another. Tanya, Sharon, Marty, Joanne. Number one Rhino. I don't want to eliminate or skip over anybody here. Big Jake, but I see you all, and we're going to make a. Oh, Mike. Hey, good morning, Mike. Mike Giro up in the house as well, and I better see your sidekick there before too long. Donna, we're looking for you. Love you guys. Number one Rhino said I would have loved to have come, but I'm 2,500 miles away. Where are you? Where are you? Yeah, I know you're trying to sound like a leftist. That's why you're calling yourself number one Rhino. I get it. All good. Where are you 2,500 miles away? I'm curious about that. That's kind of have you by, I don't know, Arizona, maybe? Colorado? No. That might be, well, California from here. Coast to coast, New York to LA is about 3,000 miles. So from here, you're probably in California based on that. Unless it's the other direction and you're somewhere in Europe. But I'm kind of curious now to see where number one Rhino is. Pretty good reason why you couldn't be at the meetup. Terry, pretty good reason if you was too far to drive. I get it. Oh, it is California. Okay, I was right. All right. Anyway, real quick, before we get to the news of the day, Jesse Jackson passed away, obviously. We're going to talk about that. I've got a very, very frustrating and upsetting story to share with you about our judicial system, which I'll get to in a moment. But last night, just to let everybody know, tomorrow I will have the official announcement of what I'm going to kind of tease today. we are having an event for all patriots and supporters of the mission. And we've outlined the mission countless numbers of times. Be a part of that mission. Like I said, click the join button and get in our locals community so we can really, narrow scope things. That locals community is literally the war room for what we do. So hit the join, hit the, back to that part of it, hit the notifications bell, hit the like and the follow and the subscribe on Rumble and on locals. That's what you got to do. All right. And if you want to be a paid supporter on locals, that's even better. You'll be a part of that insiders clique, if you will. But we got together last night and we put together something that I think is going to be one of the most fun events that I've been to maybe since I really, started stomping into the political arena. I would say 20 years ago, but to be really direct, much more heavily so, about 12 years ago. My 8 years or so on a different Cleveland radio station back from 2006 to about 2015, I broke into full-on political and news radio for about 8 years and kind of split the time doing sports coverage and doing sports talk and commentary and Cavaliers television and Indians network stuff and Browns network stuff. So I was doing all a little bit of everything, but whenever there wasn't games to talk about or to work on, I was doing political stuff. But it became full time about 12 years ago. And I've been to a lot of events in that time, talking about political events. I've been to speeches, where I was actually the presenter and having 600-700 people in the room. I've been to panel discussions like that where myself and others, we're doing discussions in what used to be called the battleground state tours. And I got to turn that off. So I've been to the rallies with President Trump, the one in Wellington in particular 5 years ago in 2021, which was the one where I was able to interview President Trump for about 18 minutes unfettered, which was incredible. That was in like June of 21. So it was about 6 months after he was had his office stolen from him. I've been to some really big things, Tea Party events, GOP picnics, Strongsville GOP events where, Vivek Ramaswamy is there and you got 400 or 500 people inside the bar and the restaurant. Bernie Moreno events. I've been to a lot of these things. The one we're planning and the one that we were talking about last night, all I want to do is kind of tease tomorrow's announcement. I can't announce everything today because we have to firm some things up today. When those things get firmed up, tomorrow will be the actual announcement of what we've got coming. But I will say this, leave some time available in the first week of March. I won't say a date until I know for a fact. Well, let me rephrase that. I think I can give a date that something large is going to happen. And it is going to be, unless some drastic thing changes today, it's going to be on Thursday, the 5th of March. Thursday, March 5th. We're going to have what I predict will be the most fun and combination of inspiring activist organization group event that I have ever been a part of. Okay. It is, I'll tell you what it's going to be called tomorrow. I'll tell you what's going to happen at it tomorrow. And I'm going to invite you to be a part of it tomorrow. And you're going to need to get on quickly because it's going to be a limited event. It's going to be limited probably to 200 people. And you're going to want to get a ticket and RSVP very quickly because you're not going to want to say you missed that one. All right. It's coming up on March 5th. And last night, the Unfiltered Insiders, my war room panel, my cabinet, want to do that? Follow the story, the metaphor. My cabinet and I got together and we put a lot of really, really good ideas into motion Phone calls have already been made. Venues have already been selected. Equipment and necessities and services provided have already been outlined. Supply. It's going to be a huge event. So put it down in your little phone right now. Get out. Do you use your phone? I can't get my son to do this. It is honestly like, before the smartphone, it's kind of like before GPS. If you're directionally challenged, how the hell do we get around? Well, we got around with MapQuest. Remember you used to have to go to your computer and print the directions off step by step and turn by turn on MapQuest. And before that, what did you do? You actually had to read maps, which very few people can do anymore. But same thing with reminders. It used to be a sticky note here or a string around the finger there. But since the advent of this tech right here, honestly, I live with my reminders on my iPhone. I still sometimes, I think I turned an alert on, but I didn't. So I still mess it up sometimes, but it's a great tool for reminding you of what's coming. So put a reminder in your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android or whatever. Put a little reminder in there saying March 5th, and put a reminder tomorrow in, because tomorrow we're probably going to make the announcement, and the RSVPs are going to start to be taken tomorrow or Thursday at the very latest. So maybe put a little reminder in your phone or tie a little string around your finger if you're old school to remind yourself to get in and get your spot, because it's going to be a phenomenal event. But let's just say it's going to be worthy of what we do every day. Patriotic, supportive of those who support and protect us, and with a very, very clearly defined mission. So that's all I'll say. So the announcement will come tomorrow on this show, and I think you're going to want to be a part of it. I'll just say that. And we'll blast it out to supporters only, and in particular, Unfiltered Insiders first. My committee members, my cabinet, who are going to be there, they're already locked in. They don't have to worry about a thing. But everybody else, if you're not one of those yet, you should become one, so that you get first dibs on it too. All right. So that's just kind of a little lay of the land about where we are. As for today, as I said before, Tricia McLaughlin, who, by the way, I don't know if I should ask her about this or not. Last night when I was home and bumping around and looking for some specifics on Tricia McLaughlin, whose picture did I put her up as the placeholder? I think I did. Hold on, let me pop this up real quick and see if I still have her image. You know what? I thought it was there. It should be there. I put it up there last night. I had to reboot everything this morning for some frozen connection reason or whatever this morning. So some things went away. But here, let me just reload this right now. There she is. That's Tricia McLaughlin, advisor to Secretary Kristi Noem. She's an Ohio native. She's an Ohio girl. She used to work on Vivek Ramaswamy's team. She's an unapologetic conservative, and she's awesome. Anyway, that's what she looks like, and I say that only to share this because I was popping around last night doing some prep for this morning's conversation, and I looked up some biographical info on Tricia McLaughlin, and I found this article popped up, and I don't know if I should ask her about it or not. I should ask you maybe. That photo that I just showed you perhaps came from, well, you know what? It came from the DHS website, if I'm being 100% honest. It came from the DHS website, and it was taken from, this particular article was taken from the DHS website. And so here's Tricia McLaughlin. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. And apparently somebody at the list decided to critique her appearance by way of her status as MAGA. I hope that's clear enough here. I always have to pop back and forth between screens to see if you're seeing what I'm seeing. Yeah, okay. You got a pretty good view of it there. So Kristi Noem advisor Tricia McLaughlin has undergone a full MAGA makeover. So this is from December. Okay, kind of like when she got her appointment to be Secretary Noem's advisor. And the article, Tricia McLaughlin has been part of the MAGA circle since Donald Trump's first term, blah, 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 blah. But now that she's going to be working for Kristi Noem, she's emulating her boss's cosmetic style In her official pick for her role as Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, McLaughlin's foundation has a decidedly orangey hue compared to her ears and her neck. Beyond the overuse of bronzer, her skin looks overly textured, similar to Noam's consistently cakey foundation. Before her MAGA makeover, her makeup was a lot more minimal, just a hint of this and that and the other thing. And I'm just reading this, and I'm like, do you lunatics have nothing better to do, honestly, than write what looks to be a good 500 to 750 word article about the makeup choices of the MAGA people you hate? I mean, seriously, critiquing her makeup because she works for Kristi Noem is just peak leftist, right? It's just, insanity and stupidity and what you would expect, I suppose, from the left. So I don't know if I'm going to bring that up to Tricia or not, because she has become bulletproof, I think, based on her unapologetic nature that I was talking about, based on her willingness to be completely in the face of Democrats and in defense of the DHS and in defense of the Trump administration. She doesn't care who criticizes her in any way. So she's become pretty much insulated from everything and said, I am here to fight the fight. And I love that about her. So we'll talk to her at 8:30 this morning a little bit. And I may or may not talk about the hate that comes with the job, that comes with working for Donald Trump and for Kristi Noem. Briefly, as you can see, I'm going to hit this because I don't have a whole ton to say about Jesse Jackson right now, except for condolences to the family and friends who knew him best. It's tragedy when anyone dies. According to the story you see here, he had progressive neuromuscular disease, progressive supranuclear palsy, a condition similar to Parkinson's. And he was hospitalized, or has been hospitalized since November 12th, is what it says, before he finally passed away. So the liberal community obviously is mourning today because of the passing of Jesse Jackson. The civil rights community, of which, by the way, I consider myself a part. I believe in civil rights. So does Peter Kirsanow, the longest-serving member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. That doesn't mean we necessarily had to agree with Jesse Jackson and the way he did things, at least not all things. I would have been a lot more of a fan of Jesse Jackson if he had come to the defense of Donald Trump over the course of the last 10 years in which Trump has been branded a racist and a bigot. Because Jesse Jackson once gave Donald Trump an award for being such a friend to the minority community, to the Black community, for being a champion for equal rights. And all of the years that have gone by, he allowed his politics, I guess, to take over that which he knew was right. Before Donald Trump became a politician, when he was just a billionaire, real estate magnate and, author and business tycoon and so forth, Jesse Jackson's like, this guy's great for Black people. He's done so many great things for us. Well, when Trump started to come under fire from the likes of, Hillary Clinton and mostly white liberals saying that Donald Trump as a politician, before he became a politician, he was a friend of the Black community. But now that he's running for office against us, he's a racist. I would love for people who knew better to have spoken out. And that's something that Jesse Jackson did not do. It's a question of unity versus division. He could have helped unify, and instead he let that division continue to run wild. So tributes are pouring in for Jesse Jackson, and I will offer mine and say it is a terrible tragedy that he has passed, particularly from such a condition. He was 84, so it's a long, full life, but it is terrible, obviously, for anybody to be lost at any point in their life, talking about for their family members and those who loved him, and our condolences are with them. And for the positive things that Jesse Jackson did for the civil rights community and for the civil rights movement, I salute, because we all have civil rights. After all, if you recall, the Civil Rights Act was passed not with objection from Republicans, but it was passed despite the objections of Democrats. It was Republicans who pushed the civil rights movement and ended the Jim Crow era. And I think everybody should know that. So to the extent that, Jesse Jackson was a part of the civil rights movement, we're with you. We were with you. And in your death, we were with you. What you could have done to unify the races in this country that did not get done will be kind of one of the stains on the legacy. Oh, look at that. I'm just scrolling Jesse Jackson tributes here, and there's what I was talking about. I didn't plan this. It just came up. It has been a decade-long propaganda campaign. Trump gave Jesse Jackson free space in one of his buildings for his organization. Remember the Rainbow Push Coalition? Would a racist do that? January 16th, 1997, Donald Trump was given an ovation when he announced that he would grant offices to Mr. Jackson's civil rights group, the Rainbow Push Coalition. I didn't know this was coming up, everybody. As you can see, I was just scrolling Jesse Jackson. Let me make this larger for you if this helps. I was just scrolling Jesse Jackson tributes on X, and this kind of just came up. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. The Rainbow Push Coalition in 40 Wall Street, which is a 72-story building, which he is renovating. He's pushing out a lot of good things, said Mr. Trump. I had video of that at one point. I might have to try to find it again. I might have to revive that, of that sterling tribute to Donald Trump that Jesse Jackson gave when he introduced him for his speech. Jesse Jackson knew Donald Trump was a friend of the Black community and a friend of civil rights and a friend of unifying Black and white people. Okay, that's just funny. Benjamin Crump announced today he'll be representing Jesse Jackson in his lawsuit against the racist Pearly Gates. Ben Crump would do something like that. So it would have been nice over the course of the last 10 years, but Jesse Jackson let his ideology and his partisan Democrat, standing overtake his knowledge of and belief in the truth that Donald Trump was not a racist. Donald Trump was an absolute friend to the Black community and to the Rainbow Push Coalition. Look at that. There's another one. Jesse Jackson was one of America's most consequential political icons. He was one of the few people in the world who has been friends with Donald Trump and Barack Obama. Whatever criticism there is over political views, his legacy is untouchable. I'm not going to get into all of the bio there. I'm just going to point out the picture there. Another one, Donald Trump, again, when he was a real estate mogul and a businessman, and was Mr. New York, he was here's that word again, unapologetic friend of the Black community. And the Black community, led by people like civil rights icon Jesse Jackson, said, yes, sir, he's one of us. Donald Trump runs for president. And they're all like, all right, we've all been wanting Donald Trump to run for president. Oprah wanted Donald Trump to run for president back in the 80s. When are you going to do this? Donald Trump finally says, all right, 2015, I'm in. I'm going to run for president. Democrats say, yay, there's our guy. Great champion of civil rights, great champion of liberal causes. And Donald Trump says, as a Republican, and it's racist, you lying no guy, it's just so hilarious the way the left is. And so when the leftist cries of Donald Trump, who was our guy, is running against us as a Republican, they had to tear him down. And they had to reinvent the image that Donald Trump had in the Black community. He has to be a racist because we need 93% of the Black vote to go to Democrats for us to win any election. And if Donald Trump, with a great reputation with Black people from his years in his career in the private sector, if Donald Trump comes in and appeals to Black people and strips away a certain number of those Black votes, we're in trouble. And you know what Donald Trump did? In 2016 against Hillary Clinton, he stripped away a lot of Black votes. In 2020, he took away even more. But the steal was in, and the rigged election for Joe Biden was in. And so Donald Trump, never got, didn't get that reelection. But then in 2024, he got even more Black votes. Because despite what the left thinks, and I'm going to stop scrolling this for a moment, because I want you to focus on what we're saying here. This will be the last thing I say about Jesse Jackson's unfortunate passing today. Despite the Democrats best efforts to denigrate and reduce Black people to being less than capable of everything, including getting a photo identification, including registering to vote with proof of citizenship, with things like a birth certificate or a passport or something that proves that you are indeed a citizen. Democrats think very, very lowly of Black people. They don't think that they can do things as well as white people. It's why they were the party of slavery. The Republican Party was built and invented to stop and end slavery, and it worked. They were the party that formed the KKK. They had to terrorize Black people to try to keep them down. They were the party that formed Jim Crow, the racist, segregationist policies that dominated the post-slavery first part of the 20th century. They were the party that opposed the passage of civil rights for African Americans and all persons to be treated equally, not separate but equal, not by way of segregation, but by way of integration. Democrats opposed all of it because they don't think much of Black people. And in fact, they proved their point when they figured out the best way to make Black people support them, which is to give them free things that they will be grateful for and will make them not have to go out and do what they can do, which is earn things themselves. Thus, the Black, the war on poverty was struck, largely aimed at the Black community. Since Black people are poor because they're less than and they can't get jobs on their own, we're going to give them more stuff. And we're going to incentivize them to stay home. And we're going to incentivize Black women to not get married. How? Because every child they have without a dad in the home is a bigger check. And we're going to get them addicted to free things like that, to the point where they'll always say, please give us more. Give me more, give me more, give me more. And who are they saying that to? The people who are giving it to them, Democrats. Democrats then and now are guilty of the most vile form of bigotry of low expectations than I think we have ever seen. They treat Black people like a permanent underclass and then tell Black people, there's only one group looking out for you. It's us. We're the ones holding you back, but we're the ones who are going to help you get by. That's what they do. And so when Donald Trump came in 2015 with a sterling record of friendship and support for the Black community from his time in the private sector, he became a serious threat. And they were right to be threatened by him because he beat them. He beat the bigotry of Hillary Clinton, the bigotry of the Democrat Party. He beat it and pulled more Black votes in because of his sterling record in that regard. And they tried everything they could. They're still doing it to this day, screaming that he's a racist. And that's the reason why somebody posted a video about voter fraud on Trump's account, and the scroll over to the next video, which was that animated video of the Lion King, with the controversy over Michelle and Barack Obama portrayed as apes. You know, there's proof Trump is a racist. Never mind his entire career of helping, supporting, and lifting the Black community and being honored and praised by the Black community for doing it. The bigotry of low expectations, Democrats thought, is we can continue to dupe them. We can continue to pull the wool over the eyes of those less than African Americans by telling them that Donald Trump has always been a racist, not a supporter of theirs. Because again, Trump literally terrified them with good reason. He pulled more Black votes than any other Republican candidate. He pulled more black votes in 2016 to in 2020. He did it 3 times, but especially in 2024. And so now to regain their political advantage, the Democrats have to resort to their political or their bigotry of low expectations. Black people won't be able to figure it out. And so this is what we'll do. We'll call the SAVE Act. Voter identification, photo identification when you vote, and proof of citizenship when you register. We'll call that Jim Crow 2.0, and Trump is at the forefront of it. They don't want you to believe or remember the truth that Jim Crow laws were instituted and implemented and defended by Democrats, not by Republicans. They ended them. Republicans ended them. So they're going to continue to hope that the black community can't figure it out. If they want you to show a photo identification when you vote, it's because they know that you black folks can't get identification as easily as white folks. See, these are the things that Jesse Jackson, to me, needed to speak out about in his later years. He needed to go after this whole situation from a standpoint of unification, which is what the goal of civil rights always was, unifying races, not further dividing them. And when one of the champions of civil rights and one of the supporters of the Rainbow Push Coalition, one of the richest men in America, if not the world, for most of the 80s and 90s, Donald Trump, steps up to help the organization, help Rainbow Push, and continues his work with the black community. And now it's 2015 and he's running as a Republican. You have an opportunity then to say, we welcome Donald Trump. We hope we defeat him because we're Democrats and he's a Republican now. But we're going to do it the right way. And we're not going to lower the bar to he's a racist because we know better. Jesse Jackson could have said, we know better. We know doggone well who Donald Trump is. And he's been a supporter of ours and a friend of ours for a very long time. If he'd have done that in his later years, I think the obituary will read a little bit differently for all Americans when it comes to Jesse Jackson and his passing this morning. I think the obituary and I think the legacy that he leaves behind is going to be one of the civil rights icon quite clearly. But I think his reputation would have been burnished even more had he been honest with the American people about this through the last few years of his life. So I'll leave it at that. All right. Now, speaking of civil rights and speaking of issues of race, I mentioned earlier on we were going to do something with the incredibly woke and dangerously divided and dangerously activist-driven criminal justice system in our country right now. And this is going to be an example of that. And I want you to pay very, very close attention to this. This is going to piss you off. All right. And I know this because when I first read about it, it pissed me off. This is from about, what is today, the 17th. So last week, 5 days ago, from BizPac Review. I found this story and maybe you've already seen it and heard it. I'll blow it up here a little larger so you can try to see it better. There you go. This is, this is where race relations and racial harmony and racial unity are challenged. Okay. When you have unrepentant, white-hating racists in the black community, particularly in black positions of power, and they abuse that power because of their bigotry, that sets race relations back decades. Cases like this. You see the headline. Woke judge refuses to give unremorseful violent rapist sentence he deserves because he's black. Now, we don't know the race of the rape victim. Might have been a black female, might have been a white female. I don't know because they don't release information about rape victims unless the rape victims come forward themselves publicly, which I understand, matter of privacy. But given the way this judge, which you see here on your right, handled the case for this unrepentant, violent piece of human waste on your left, and given her reputation on matters of race, I'm going to assume that the victim was white. It won't change the story, because if the victim was black or white, the victim was victimized in horrific ways by this unrepentant rapist. And this judge did not care about that victim, black or white. Here's the story. This convicted rapist, Christopher Thompson, forced his way into a woman's car at gunpoint in July of 23, drove her to a nearby school, sodomized her twice, and then robbed her. This according to one of the news stations that covered the story, KTSA. Following a 4-day trial in December, a jury convicted him of robbery, kidnapping, sodomy, and sexual abuse, and recommended he be locked up for 65 years. 65 years. That's, without question, that's a pretty healthy sentence. That's a lot, especially for a first-time rapist. But the crime was so vile, and the attitude of the defendant during the trial was so reprehensible with the things that he said. The jury felt like this guy is going to be a danger to the public when he gets out, whenever that is. So we want to make sure he's an old man who can never, ever do this again by the time he gets out. So they said 65 years for a reason. He's 20. If he lived in prison for 65 years, he gets out at 85, chances are even with a blue pill, he won't be able to do that to anybody again. That's essentially what the jury was doing here. The judge, however, Judge Tracy Davis, at the sentencing hearing on February 2nd, disagreed with the jury. The judge, pictured here, with her Twitter feed, her X feed, calls herself Diversity Davis. That's her @ handle. That's her X handle, @Diversity Davis. Judge-elect at the time that she posted her bio here, now a judge, Jefferson County Circuit Court, Division 5 in Kentucky. She even has on proud display, not even in her bio line, but up here in her name line, the fact that she's a she, her. So she is a radical leftist identity politician type of a judge. As you can see, Matt Walsh wrote about her here in this tweet. This is the judge who just cut a convicted and unrepentant rapist sentence in half explicitly because he's black. And that is exactly correct. How do we know? Let's look at the details. Davis voiced disagreement with the jury and the 65-year sentence that they recommended, despite the fact that Thompson displayed not only zero remorse, but incredibly vile hatred for the victim and disregard for the victim, and did not care throughout the trial. You know, remorse is a huge part of what most judges consider whenever they're deciding on a sentence. Is the convict remorseful and likely to repeat this behavior when they are free? That is a big, big part. Or do they have real extreme regret for it, of what they, the kind of sentence that they hand down? Well, here's an example of what this particular defendant during the trial did. He erupted in profanity and threats toward Judge Tracy Davis, telling her to, quote, and apologies here if there's any young ones in the room, plug their ears for 2 seconds, "Eat my dick." Said that to the judge, and repeatedly stated he did not care about his sentence or the victims, according to the news station KTSA. Despite his vile, disgusting behavior during the trial and lack of remorse, and in fact, pride in the horrific thing that he had done, Davis chose to sentence him to only 30 years, less than half of what the jury recommended, in large part because he's black. Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. Another station, WAVE reporter, noted in the video below, she feels he hasn't mentally matured yet, and he never had a real shot at getting any help early in life. In explaining her decision, this judge, the judge the judge who calls herself Diversity Davis, said Thompson, quote, never had a real shot at getting any help early in life, and because he was a 20-year-old African-American male and has experienced this society. I'll play the video in a second, but let me pull back real quick because I want you to hear that again, and I want you to think about what it was. Because he's black in this society. What society, Diversity Davis? Oh, you mean the systemically racist society that you and other radical woke leftists want to believe that this is. That since he's black and in, quote, this society, he never had a fair chance to do the right thing, to have a moral center, a code, a belief that says you don't break into someone's car, drive them and rape them and sodomize them and abuse them at gunpoint ever. Because he was growing up as a black male, an African-American male in this society, it's not his fault. So he doesn't deserve that 65-year sentence. He gets 30 and probably on parole would be out in 15. Probably in his 30s, he'll be released, having learned exactly zero because of Diversity Davis, Judge Diversity Davis. Let's go back to this. Okay, the video. Let's do the video. Watch.
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old.
I got to pause that. He tells her to eat his junk. He expresses, I don't care, when asked about the victim. What about your sentence? I don't care. She says that that's what this court hears is somebody who's hurt and angry. Hurt. He raped and sodomized a young woman, beat her brutally. And he's the one, according to Diversity Davis, is hurt, who's hurt. He's hurt and angry. Not evil and vile and irredeemable and violent and vicious and a threat. He's hurt and angry. That's what this court hears. I had to emphasize that. You need to hear these things, and we need to process what is really being said here.
And instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male that has been, experienced this society, etc., and you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation. This is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
Tom's.
Okay. This is incredible. She's trying to give him verbal cues on how to behave right now, because I'm about to cut you a huge break. If you'd have come in here instead of being hurt and angry, she said, and if you'd come in, somebody like you who has, quote, experienced this society, which means all of what you are right now is not your fault. It's society's fault. Society made you unable to follow society's guidelines. Society made you unable to follow the norms and the rules of human beings. It's definitely society's fault, not yours. If you come in here talking about that and you would show that, and again, here's the verbal cues she's giving him. If you would show that this is the situation, this is who I am, I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail forever. She's giving him cues. While she's saying it, he's back talking her and telling her, I don't give a crap. He's literally back-talking her and saying, no, that's not me. I don't care if I'm in jail forever. He said he didn't care about his sentence. He didn't care about what anybody thought of him, and he didn't care about his victim. But she's trying to make it sound as though he's a repentant guy who was only hurt and angry before, but the real him is somebody who doesn't want to be this person anymore, a violent person, a vicious person, an inhumane person, a subhuman person. She's trying to paint him as that, and he's arguing with her while she does it. Does that change her mind and say, wow, dude really is as bad as what that crime sounds like? I guess we'll go with the jury's recommendation. Nope, not when you're Diversity Davis and your mission is to help people in marginalized communities, like one like yourself, an African-American male. Just like you're a she, her, and you're all about the LGBTQ. She is all about that more than she is about the law. How this woman, how this incomprehensibly broken woman can be wearing a black robe and sit in judgment in a United States courtroom, in judgment of anyone, is incomprehensible. Let's finish it.
To be in jail for forever.
Thompson repeatedly stated he did not care, not about his sentence, the victim, or her family. But Judge Davis emphasized she's the one that holds the pen, and regardless of what the media may think, she applies the law. To her, 65 years was an extremely long time. As she puts it, it's his whole life, one she doesn't believe should be spent entirely behind bars.
This court does not believe that Mr. Thompson, if given the resources that he can get while incarcerated, is beyond being rehabilitated.
So that kind of begs the question about rehabilitation. Just super briefly on this, how many decades do you think it's going to take for his victim to be rehabilitated, to rehabilitate her life, to overcome what she endured by that non-human, savage, rapist piece of trash? How long until that person gets rehabilitation? And then secondly, what did you see in the crime or hear during the trial that indicated that this individual wants anything to do with becoming a better person over the next 15 years in prison, which is probably what he'll get? 30 years sentence, probably 15 on parole. What makes you think he's any interest whatsoever in changing himself? You tried to describe him as somebody who doesn't want to be that person anymore, and he talked back to you and said, hell, I don't. What are you talking about? But not in that language. What does anybody think Diversity Davis would have sentenced? What was his name again? Thomas? Was it Thomas? I got to go back to the thing now. Where'd his name go? I'm sorry. Thompson. Christopher Thompson. What sentence do you think this judge, given all of the facts and that behavior, what do you think this judge gives white Thompson? If this rapist, if this Christopher Thompson is a white male, what do you think she gives him when the jury comes back with 65 years? Thompson's defense attorney, Clay Kennedy, admitted that in 13 years of practice, he had never seen a judge override a jury's recommendation. Never before has it ever happened in his 13 years of practicing law. Never. That's the defense attorney who's like, dang, this is a gift. It's never happened before. She gave less than half of what the jury said. Members of the Louisville Metro Council also bashed the judge's decision. Minority Caucus Chair Anthony Piagentini, who is a Republican, that's the minority party down there in Kentucky, at least in this particular jurisdiction, said, where's the concern for the victim? Do we think she's going to get over this in 30? Yeah, do we think, that's what I was asking. Do you think she's going to get over this in 30 years? Where's the concern for the safety of the public when he does get released from jail? Piagentini said he intends to publish more information about Diversity Davis, namely the number of times she's handed out probation to criminals who didn't deserve it. If she believes that her decisions are all justifiable and good, she should welcome this level of transparency, he said. I think the opposite. I think the public would be appalled to hear what she is doing and how her decisions reduce the safety of our community. Commonwealth Attorney Jarena Weathers released a statement calling the judge's decision, quote, disappointing. Due to the defendant's actions and inappropriate outbursts in court, the jury recommended a sentence of 65 years in prison. While we recognize the court has discretion in the final sentence, we are disappointed that the court deviated from the sentence for less than half of what the jury of his peers determined was appropriate for this dangerous defendant. The jury's recommendation was the most appropriate outcome in this case. End quote. It should be noted that Jarena Weathers, who was critical of this, representing the Commonwealth, who is critical of this, is also Black. This isn't a white against Black situation. That's a Black district attorney talking about a Black judge and a Black defendant, and the fact that this is wholly inappropriate. A spokesperson for the Jefferson County Circuit Court issued a statement in defense of Davis, because of course they have to. Quote, while it may be relatively rare for judges to reduce a jury sentencing recommendation, judges are called on to make sentencing decisions dispassionately, proportionately, and according to law, not according to or in fear of how the public may perceive or react to that decision. So that's just the reality of what's going on. It is incomprehensible, it is indefensible, it is unjustifiable, but it is the reality, particularly in radical leftist courtrooms, that we have judges who are not really judges. They are activists who would be at LGBTQ meetings and who would be at, Black Lives Matter meetings and everything else, and have no interest whatsoever in actually being fair and impartial jurists whose job it is to interpret and then thus enforce law by way of sentences, by way of holding fair trials and holding defendants accountable in the interest of justice for A, the victim, and B, for the community that would be put at risk when somebody like this is freed. These are activists wearing black robes, not judges adorned by appropriate regalia. All right? That's just the reality of the situation. So it's extraordinarily dangerous. And it needs to be called out. And again, I bring this up now for another reason too. Did anybody see the Barack Obama comment when he was asked about race relations in this country? And I can't remember what the exact question he was asked was, but he proceeded to declare that division in this country is the responsibility of the Republicans, that the Republican Party is responsible for the division that has caused so many problems in the United States. There has never, ever, ever been a more divisive president in the history of the country than his holy Barackness. Never. He made that clear from day one. And Democrats have continued to push that division, knowing full well that embracing race theory, embracing Marxist critical race theory is the best way to divide the country. A divided country cannot stand. A divided country can crumble from within. We need to split the people in this country down the middle, from oppressor to oppressed. And this goes back to should I pull it up? I might be able to pull it up real quick, just because we're kind of on this, but because I stumbled past this before when I was scrolling locals with you about previous shows. And you remember the show that we did last week in which we were talking about Jean Wu, who said that all persons in marginalized communities, meaning Black, Hispanic, Asian like himself, or LGBTQ, all of us share the same oppressor, he said, which of course is white people. That's a Democrat. If there's more of a divisive line than that, I haven't heard it. I can't imagine anything more divisive than a statement like that. And yeah, here it is. I found it. Just a reminder. This video was optimized for cell phone. vertical, the smaller 9:16 instead of 16:9. So you're not going to be able to see it very well, but you'll hear it so you can remember about this segment from last week, because the message here is on point. This is exactly what we're talking about. So let me try to make this a little bigger if I can. All right, probably not much better than that, but it's what you need, what you hear that matters here.
But the problem
What's fair, Gene? What's fair? What's fair is opportunity. All right? You're an Asian man and you're talking about, this might not be what I want. I wanted his part of this, and I think this video is my response to it. So I can already do my response again live. I don't need to do that again. Okay. So we'll call that one a fail. We won't do that one, at least right now anyway. But what Gene Wu said, he is the chairman of the Texas Democrat Caucus in the Texas State Legislature. So he's in a position of authority, in a position of some power in Texas politics. And that man did that live interview in which he declared that the white community, are the enemies of all of the oppressed communities. That's literal Marxism. That is literal division, intentional division between oppressed and oppressor. It was done in Marxist nations, Marxist, socialist, communist nations, first under class. It was class divisions, critical class theory. Divide people between the haves and the have-nots. And the haves, no matter what they quote unquote have and how they got it, are the enemies. And they are depriving the have-nots of any opportunities to elevate their status, to achieve anything, to become anything. The haves are the enemies. There's haves and have-nots. And, and I remember talking to a Chinese historian. Why am I blanking on her name? I've interviewed her multiple times. Oh gosh, I feel awful. I'm flaking on her name, but she escaped. Xi Van Fleet. Xi Van Fleet escaped the Holocaust, or not the Holocaust, escaped Mao's Cultural Revolution, which is kind of a Holocaust in China. She escaped that when she was a teenager, and she is now warning the American people of the dangers of, Maoism, communism, the stuff that she escaped in Mao's China. And she talked about how in China it used to be the haves and the have-nots in the Marxist division that that they use to break apart the people. The haves may be just somebody with two walks instead of one walk. How they got another walk is irrelevant. It's just that you have two walks and I only have one walk. You're my enemy. You are part of the bourgeoisie and we're the one walk pros over here. You're the enemy. And that division is exactly what the Democrats use now. It's critical class theory then. It's critical race theory now. Critical gender theory now. That's what they do. Okay? It's extraordinary when you think about it, that they pull this off and get away with it. And then Barack Obama goes on and says, well, the division in the country is the responsibility of the Republicans. The Republicans are the ones. Oh my gosh. We are the ones saying, let's be colorblind. Let's all be the same, American and human, and all judged by the same things. What is our moral center? What is our intellectual capability? What are our talents? What are our skills? What are our abilities? We want everybody to be judged on the merit. And as Martin Luther King, who was kind of the precursor to Jesse Jackson, who passed away this morning, in terms of the Civil Rights Crusade, obviously, wanted everybody to be judged by the content of who they are, their character, not by the color of their skin. Republicans are saying, we agree. Color doesn't matter. If you're black, you're my brother. If you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, we're all arm in arm, because we don't see that. Democrats have made it their exact mission in modern leftist fashion to make sure, no, we are not all brothers. We are all different, and you better recognize that difference. Recognize that I'm a darker tint on my skin than you, therefore you're my enemy, and you're an oppressor, and I'm a victim. And so is that other one over there who's a little bit of his color is different than mine, but has different facial features. And that person over there doesn't have the same sexual attraction as you. So that means you're an oppressor to that person too, and they're the oppressed. They're the victimized. We want to identify, this is where the term identity politics comes into play. We want to identify all of the differences between us and blame you for thinking you're superior to all of us. The Democrats divide in order to conquer. It's not difficult. And that's exactly what they're doing in Minnesota and in other big cities across the country, particularly the sanctuary cities. It's the evil, oppressive Americans who think that this stolen land is exclusively theirs, and they have the right to pass judgment on non-Americans, but who are not illegal, because no one is illegal on stolen land. And they think they have a right to keep this all to themselves. Division. That's back to critical class theory as well as critical race theory. So the bottom line here is that, what this judge did, because the defendant was black, despite his lack of remorse, despite his, statement to her that she can eat his blank, this guy sentenced to 65 years by a jury, cut down to 30 by a judge solely because of his black experience in America, because he has lived this society, her direct quote, he has lived not in, but lived this society, this racist society. This is further evidence of the division that they are using to destroy. There's really no other way to say that. All right. It is 19 minutes after the hour, and I want to remind everybody now about the Buckeye Blueprint. Ohio is an amazing state. We have everything that it takes to lead the nation, but we need the right policies to get there. The Buckeye Blueprint is focused on building a bolder and better Buckeye state, moving Ohio from being the middle of the Midwest, which we are kind of geographically and also statistically, but to number one in the country for economic freedom, educational opportunity. We're way down there. Energy abundance, and a government that works for the people. If you believe Ohio can do better, and we are amazing, but the opportunity is there to do so much more. If you believe Ohio can do better, join us and take action at BuckeyeBlueprint.com. That's BuckeyeBlueprint.com. Buckeye Blueprint is a product of Americans for Prosperity, which is a foundational sponsor of this program, of this podcast, and we thank them for that support. That monetary support is extraordinarily important as we continue to grow and advance our mission. So thank you to AFP and Americans for Prosperity, and I hope you do get indeed on the Buckeye Blueprint. BuckeyeBlueprint.com. Okay, I'm going to take a short time out here. We're going to set the table for our next guest, and we're going to be joined by Homeland Security Advisor to Secretary Kristi Noem, Tricia McLaughlin. She's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. We're going to take a short time out here and come right back after this, right here on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Okay, break time is over. It is 24 minutes past the hour. Again, thanks for your attention. Chatters, don't forget, appreciate you being in there. Don't forget, bring somebody new each and every week, each and every day, I should say, when you get into the live feed. I love when people are watching the live stream and you get in the chat conversations, make things so much more interesting. I always appreciate that. But I want you to bring new blood too, so we can get even more people involved in the conversation. The more, obviously, the more powerful and influential we become, which is the goal here. Okay, so a couple of minutes away from being joined by Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. I told you, look at the title of today's episode. Tricia McLaughlin takes no prisoners, and it's true. She does not suffer lunatic leftists politely at all. She cannot just allow them to get away with what they do. So I'm going to give you an example of that right now. Unapologetic in her support for her department, DHS. Unapologetic in her support for Secretary Noem. Unapologetic in her support for President Trump. She was on Fox last night. Was Tricia McLaughlin talking about how Democrats are holding national security hostage. And that is exactly what's happening. It's going to be one of the things we talk to her about here in just a moment. So let me offer this for you. Let me get the screen shared. So this is what she had to say about what the Democrats have done here with the defunding, essentially, of Homeland Security over ICE reforms that are an intention to literally abolish immigration and customs enforcement. Watch.
So the Democrats are really kind of pulling the rug out from underneath the feet of national security in order to try to make a point about immigration operations,
right,
which have already been modified.
When our immigration enforcement efforts will not be hampered by this in any way, ICE and CBP agents will still be paid. And yet there's 23 components of DHS. Until I started this job, actually, I didn't realize how vast the scope of DHS is. 260,000 employees will be impacted.
Huge.
TSA agents. I mean, we saw this movie before, though, John. We saw TSA agents in the last shutdown. Some of them were sleeping in their car. Some people having to choose between buying gasoline to get to work and putting food on the table. The Democrat politicians here, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they are holding the American people's national security hostage. Just in the name of scoring some cheap political points, it's really nonsensical.
So
it is indeed all of that. And it's not just TSA either. But we were talking to Senator Moreno yesterday. Shall we not forget about the United States Coast Guard? The United States Coast Guard is not funded until this appropriations bill is actually passed. That's an element of our armed forces, for crying out loud. Nobody talks about the Coast Guard very much. We talk about, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Sometimes we'll even talk about Space Force. Very few people talk about Coast Guard, but it's an essential part of national security, as is FEMA. Now, not from the security standpoint, but it does fall under the Homeland Security. And FEMA, as Senator Moreno said, very soon we're going to have a tornado in the spring, or 2 or 10. We're going to have another massive blizzard that's going to knock out power, and people are going to be in serious jeopardy. We're going to have natural disasters happen, and FEMA is not going to be able to respond at full strength because this isn't funded. All why? All because the Democrats don't like the fact that criminal rapists, murderers, child traffickers, drug traffickers, carjackers, the most violent of the illegal aliens are whom ICE was searching for and continues to search for, but in Minnesota and beyond. And all because the Democrats want those people to be protected from the big bad ICE people. They're willing to get rid of FEMA, to not fund the Coast Guard, not fund TSA, and all of those other elements that you just heard Tricia McLaughlin talking about and Senator Moreno talked about yesterday, all to protect them. That's what this comes down to. So we need to understand that there is a legitimate security threat here, and there is a national, and the worst part about it is, as you heard Tricia McLaughlin talking about, the worst part about it is it doesn't touch ICE. The appropriations bill, this doesn't cut funding for the tripling of the ICE force that President Trump promised in the One Big Beautiful Bill. That One Big Beautiful Bill funded that massive ICE force until he leaves office in 2029. All right? It's funded already. The only thing it does is it hurts those other areas we're talking about. But that would, to recognize that and understand that would involve thinking one step past the moment. Democrats can't think one step past the moment. It's the moment they're in right now. And the moment they're in is the one they've created, one of chaos and anarchy in the streets that led to the deaths of 2 people. And now we exploit that in order to try to dismantle ICE and leave our voters alone. What, Bob? You heard me. They see the 12 to 20 million illegals that Biden let in the last 4 years, as well as the 20 million that were here before that, as their voters, whether they get to actually vote or just they are counted in the census that leads to more Democrat representation in Congress. These people have to stay. And that's what this is all about. All right. I do see her in the green room right now, so I want to welcome to the program somebody with whom I've been acquainted and am such a big fan of, especially for her unapologetic work in support of law enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security. I speak of Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant to Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. She is a chief advisor. Tricia, thank you for making time for us this morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Well, it's an honor to have you, as always. You are doing amazing work. You are just getting the truth out there that people need to hear, despite all of the attacks on the department and on ICE. So let's talk about this. You work for Department of Homeland Security. At this moment in time, DHS is not funded. Tell me the impact as you see it.
Yeah, this is the definition. This is textbook of putting politics ahead of public safety. And that's exactly what the Democrat Party is doing, what Hakeem Jeffrey and Chuck Schumer are doing. What we have going on is ICE and CBP are fully funded through 2029. So our immigration enforcement efforts, whether they be in Minnesota or in Ohio or in Chicago, they will not be hampered. They won't be touched. But what is being impacted is the 260,000 other DHS employees. So that's TSA, that's FEMA, that's the U.S. Coast Guard, as you mentioned, that's the Secret Service, that's CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, and they do a lot to thwart hacks and attacks on our essential infrastructure. So, Bob, this has a major national security implication to it. We don't know how long this shutdown is going to go on, but you can better believe, and it's so unfortunate, the American people are going to feel this one way or another. And it's simply in the name of politics, because this is nominal, this is symbolic, but it's going to have actual national security implications, Bob.
I know that the secretary can't do anything about it because she's not in the legislature. She's not in the Senate to be able to do anything about this, but I haven't heard much from her in recent days either. What is her feeling about how she will manage the agency, the entire Department of Homeland Security, on what is going to be a skeleton crew?
Well, she's looking at different ways that she has discretionary funding to fund these essential agencies, including law enforcement. I mean, Bob, you also look at the upcoming events that we have happening in the United States in the next 6 months. You look at America 250, talk about FIFA. That's going to be like 10 Super Bowls in 1 year in the United States itself. And that's everything that Homeland Security plans for and is largely the lead agency on security for. So the secretary, she's very fine-tuned into the details, less focused on the messaging right now. She's going to let the White House do those negotiations while she's figuring out what she's going to do with those 260,000 employees and make sure that the American people are still safe.
Tricia, as you advise Secretary Noem and as you guys strategize everything, you have to have some some input into what the negotiations look like in the legislature. What I mean by that is this 10-point demand list, which I think actually, when you look at the subsets, is 20-some things that the Democrats are demanding in order to fund, to fund DHS. All of these reforms. Are there any things in that list that you guys can work with? And what things are absolute non-starters with respect to what their demands are to get this done?
Yeah, I can speak more broadly to this. I think we saw in the beginning of negotiations those body cameras, of course, being an issue. And when we go out on the ground and speak with our officers and agents, they want body cams. They want transparency. They know that there is a highly coordinated campaign of violence against them and agitators against them. So they want that transparency to be able to show the facts to people. So we've completely come to the table on that, and we're deploying those nationwide. As far as these administrative warrants, I think a lot of people have heard stories from the media that DHS does not have a warrant when we enter the home of an illegal alien. That is absolutely not true. We don't have a judicial warrant in some cases, but we absolutely have an administrative warrant. And what does that mean? That means that in every single case that these administrative warrants are used, this illegal alien has had full due process. They have a final deportation order from a federal immigration judge. Then they are a fugitive of the law. Our officer also then has probable cause. Administrative warrants have been long recognized by U.S. Congress, by the Supreme Court, and we've actually been vindicated on this issue by the 8th Circuit of Appeals out of Minnesota. So we should be able to continue to use those administrative warrants, and it would be very tough on the administration and immigration efforts if we couldn't use these.
Well, it would be more than tough, right? It would be impossible. I mean, the idea that one judge, an immigration judge, has already said final order of deportation has been given. Go get these people. And then now, okay, we found out where they are. They're in that house right there, but they won't open the door. So we're going to have to force our way in, not without going to see another judge and getting that judge to tell you you can do that too. Now we're talking about, two different, courts have to agree with this whole thing. And in the meantime, you're searching for millions of people and hundreds of thousands across the country, unless I'm overstating that, of criminal illegal aliens. We've heard the numbers are roughly 70% of those who have been deported already have been criminal illegal aliens. But we can't wait for two different courts to greenlight going to get people when we're searching for that many. It would take 20 million years to do that.
Oh, Bob, you're completely correct. I mean, you just look at yesterday out of Savannah, Georgia, we had an individual who we were arresting at a final deportation order from a judge. There is a traffic stop. He decides to evade arrest and ends up running his car into an innocent driver, killing that driver who's a school teacher. But this is what happens, A, when state and local law enforcement won't work with us and turn these people over to us in their jails. And then B, if we can't use something like an administrative warrant where we can enter that residence, when these people have already had full due process. So the courts again and again attempting to hamstring us, and it's simply judicial activism.
Yeah, and it hurts the community. And that's how do you feel about it? I sit here from a place far removed from where you are and from where a lot of this garbage over the last 2 months was happening up in the Twin Cities. When you see it, though, from your position in DHS, what do you think of when you see community members rallying and obstructing and impeding and agitating law enforcement in defense of the people who make their community less safe, which are the criminal aliens we're talking about? Does it ever just make you stop and say, I'm living in a parallel universe?
I think that there's a degree of ICE hysteria going on. I think that we're going to look back in 10 years and say, like the gender revolution, we're going to look back and say, what the heck? What was this social contagion? The fact of the matter is DHS is a law enforcement agency. We are enforcing the rule of law that is on the books in Congress. The fact that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries would like to defund, and is successfully defunding this agency for doing just that, when they had the power to actually try and change those laws, it just shows a total disconnect from the reality on the ground. It's interesting, in Munich, of course, Hillary Clinton takes to the podium to condemn ICE law enforcement officers and demonize them, vilify them. And yet, under her her own husband under Barack Obama, there was mass deportations. You didn't see obstruction. You didn't see assaults on our law enforcement officers. You actually saw people thanking law enforcement for removing these public safety threats. And just to give you a couple stats, Bob, over 1,000 known or suspected terrorists in the last year have been removed from the interior of our country. 1,000 terrorists walking around our communities. That is stunning. 7,000 gang members. And that's just the ones that we've known of and have been apprehended. So what all politicians left, right, and center should be doing is thanking DHS law enforcement for risking their lives every single day to remove these people from our streets.
100% agree with that. Real quick, that 1,000 terrorist line, is there a list? Is it available by name? Can we make these people infamous? And the reason I ask that, you guys at DHS have done a great job of circulating every so often some of the mugshots of some of the criminal aliens that you have been targeting and what their crimes are, to let people know, again, we're not targeting the abuela, and the 5-year-old down the block, or the landscaper or whatever. If they get caught up in it because ICE has to go into the communities and find these bad people, then that's the way it goes. But right. The bad people have been featured. The word terrorist has got to carry more weight. Has DHS, or will DHS, release the list of 1,000 names and pictures of these people who have been removed? Let people know how much safer the country is now because of that.
For the most part, we will, and we have. And actually, to that point, Bob, for viewers watching, go to wow.dhs.gov. It's a searchable link, wow.dhs.gov. You can see who ICE and DHS has removed from your community. You can see what crimes they've committed. It's a really useful tool. Share that with your friends and family. They should know what our law enforcement has done and who was walking around your community with impunity for the last 4 years. As far as those known and suspected terrorists, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, Bob. Some of these people, we've arrested, and they lead to others, other connections and other investigatory resources. But for the most part, we want to operate with transparency. We want the American people to know who's been in this country.
Yeah, no question about it. And I'm so glad you guys are doing that. And I love the URL too, by the way. It's a great way to get attention. Tricia, let me ask you about going back to the list. You said you wanted to speak more generally about some of the demands that they have for reforms, but I want to ask about the identification part. I think the top 2 or 3 are about no masks, must wear photo identification, and must give verbally identify yourself if asked or demanded by one of the protesters or one of whomever, which of course is just insane the way I describe it. How does DHS describe that?
So, Bob, I've been on probably a dozen of these operations at this point all across the country, and I see what these men and women go through. First of all, they do verbally present themselves when they're on an operation to that target specifically. There's really no mystery going on with who these guys are. They're either in their ERO or ICE vests. They're often flanked by vehicles that also have the department's name on it. So to act like these are but
they want their names. They want not just the agency, ICE or DHS or whatever. They want their names. Yeah. John Smith, ICE agent from Minneapolis or whatever.
Well, of course they do, because we've already seen what the left has done as far as the doxing of our agents. We have 1,000% increase in assaults against them. We have an 8,000% increase in death threats against our officers. It's not just against them. It's about their children. It's against their spouses where they work, where their children go to school. Sometimes they're followed on their way home. So I won't speak for the White House, but I think that would be incredibly dangerous for our officers who are already facing this peril. As far as why they wear those masks, because I think that that's a natural question. Why won't they show their faces? We haven't seen a lot of law enforcement operate like that unless they're undercover, which a lot of these guys are undercover, because who are they targeting? MS-13 gang members, known or suspected terrorists, Tren de Aragua, these very vicious, violent criminal rings. And if their identity is revealed, that puts them in personal jeopardy. And that also can put the broader investigation in jeopardy. And then the other piece of this, unfortunately, which has been new, is that they are so being targeted by these rioters, by these assaulters. We're seeing it's a highly coordinated campaign of violence against them. So for them to be able to maintain discretion when it comes to their personal identity is important, Bob.
Has DHS encouraged anybody in the legislature, either House or Senate side, to pass something that would make it, because I think Senator Moreno mentioned something about this in passing, but I can't quote it, about making it a federal crime, a felony to dox a federal agent, because it does put him or her and their families in jeopardy.
Yeah, there's certainly been those discussions, and I think that those discussions will continue. They could potentially be part of negotiations that are ongoing as we speak. But what we've seen, Bob, I mean, how many young women I've seen on that job who are, they've answered the call. They see what has happened to their communities, that they've been ravaged by violent gangs and criminal illegal aliens, and they want to step up and help. 12,000 new ICE officers are on the job as of January. That's from the money from the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's 100% increase in our workforce, which A, is fantastic, but B, it also has this secondary benefit. The more arrests we're making, Bob, the more self-deportations we're seeing, because these illegal aliens are getting the message, hey, if I don't leave now, if I don't take my $2,600 exit bonus, which, wow, what an incredibly generous offer, and a free flight home, then I'm going to be arrested. So, ICE and CBP officers, like I mentioned before, they are still getting paid, and they will still continue to carry out those immigration enforcement efforts.
Tricia, what about you? Have you experienced the stuff that the ICE agents, because you can't be masked, you're a public figure, you're a spokesperson for DHS. What kind of hate, what kind of threats have you, I know you and Secretary Noem and others have had to have been facing as well?
Yeah, well, I'm so honored to do this job, and I knew the risks when I came into it, and blessed to have this opportunity from President Trump and Secretary Noem. But yeah, I'm from Ohio, actually, myself from Cincinnati. Unfortunately, my parents have been routinely targeted. Myself personally, the death threats. We have had a number of arrests, so we're glad that our agents and officers take it seriously, and they take our Secretary Noem's safety seriously. Tom Homan, Director Todd Lyons, they've all experienced this to quite a degree that I don't think that we've really seen in recent history.
Are you allowed to disclose if you are under Secret Service protection?
I do have a security detail, yes.
Okay,
that is very unusual for somebody in my position.
I know, right? I know what a time we live in that you have to have that. And the reason I ask it specifically is because that was one of the other elements of DHS that I didn't know until Senator Moreno yesterday told me that is also unfunded. We're talking about FEMA, Coast Guard, TSA. Secret Service is also funded by the DHS. And so if that appropriation is not passed, your Secret Service detail will not be paid. And so that's extraordinarily dangerous as well.
And President Trump's is a no-fail mission. I mean, we saw what just happened with President Trump. We've seen time and time again these threats being thwarted, and thank goodness. But when you have men and women who aren't being paid, who are under financial strain, who, they don't have maybe backup because somebody can't come into work because they're facing either paying the babysitter or going into work, they don't have childcare, it becomes a real national security threat for our leaders.
Absolutely. And Tricia, you mentioned the number of new ICE agents since the start of the year. What is that number?
So we are at 22,000 total. Starting when President Trump came into office, it was 10,000 ICE officers. So 120%, pretty incredible.
The funding is there in the One Big Beautiful Bill to triple that force, right? And that is what they're in the process of doing?
So we've already done it. So we're at 120%. Yeah. So yeah, we've hired 12,000 new ICE officers within the last year. That is that money from that One Big Beautiful Bill. We're really already seeing a lot of results directly from that. And I think just as our officers get even more trained and their intelligence and their casework comes underway, we're going to see even bigger arrests coming.
Yeah, well, you sniffed out where I was going with this because I wanted to ask you about training. One of the biggest criticisms that we're getting from the left of ICE is that they're untrained, saying that they're just pulling these people in, paying them big bonuses, and then giving them a 2-week course and sending them out there with a gun saying, go get them. I know that's not true, but can I get it from DHS? What kind of training are these guys getting?
Yeah, it's simply not true. They're at FLETC, our law enforcement training center down in Georgia. Secret Service also trains there. These are highly professional. They get de-escalation training, firearms, conflict management, across the gambit. They are trained. 85% of them actually have prior law enforcement experience, so that's key as well. And they also have prior military experience, many of them. But it's about a 3-month training process.
Is the recruiting still going on at a high level?
The recruiting is going on, definitely to a lower level. I mean, it was more competitive to get into ICE than it was in Harvard in recent days. Just the fact that we were trying to fill 10,000 positions and we had 220,000 applications to be an ICE officer. So despite what the mainstream media is telling you, that these are Nazis, the Gestapo, likening them to the slave patrol, I really do think that the American people see through it. They see what this mass illegal migration has done to their communities. They've seen the uptick and surge in crime, and they do want to answer the call.
They're heroes, and nobody will talk about them in that regard. We will, and I will, and we're going to do something very special about that very shortly, which we'll talk about another time. But Tricia McLaughlin, advisor to Secretary Kristi Noem in the Department of Homeland Security, I'm going to ask you a critical question now, because I have been probably Tom Homan's biggest fan for the last 10 years. I mean, honestly, since he first, I guess I kind of really first became totally aware of him in the first Trump term. And now I know, of course, he served 4 presidents, as he pointed out. He was awarded a medal by Barack Obama for helping national security, for doing exactly what he's doing now, which is deporting illegal aliens. So I love Tom, and I wanted to give you all of that backdrop because I don't want this criticism or this question to in any way, shape, or form dull my appreciation for Tom Homan. But I hated what was done last week, the messaging that we're going to pull out because, you know, I love the fact that he announced we've rescued and found 3,300 and some odd children that Biden wasn't even looking for. And I love the fact that they have had, I don't know exactly what the number of arrests of criminal aliens in the Twin Cities or in Minnesota are, but I did hear him say that there were roughly 16,000 more illegal aliens that they are looking for in Minnesota, and yet we're pulling out. I felt it sounded like a surrender. And I'm not saying that Tom, our border czar, made that call, but the decision was made at whatever level. DHS, maybe right from the White House itself. I don't know, but I don't like the message that says we did a lot of great work here and the job isn't done yet, but we're leaving. Because what it says, Tricia, is if you scream ICE out now, loud enough, long enough, blow enough whistles in faces, box in enough cars, you can do it. You can drive ICE out now. That's how I saw it. Give me DHS's perspective, please.
No, I can see why that would be your perspective, but we will be maintaining a presence there, a permanent presence there in Minnesota, as we always have. We arrested 11,000 illegal aliens in the last couple of months that we've been there. So that is a really successful operation compared to the same time out of California, which is about 16,000. So a lot of progress made, but this is often how these operations work, just as far as we'll go in for a couple of months with our surged operation, but we always maintain a presence there. This is what we saw out of Los Angeles. This is what we saw out of Chicago. And this is also what we saw out of Charlotte and New Orleans. So you can expect these surges, across the country, but they do typically last a few months. And the president, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, they all look at the resources that we have and determine where we have the best cases, we have the best targets, and go after those criminals.
Yeah, and I know more is coming. Like I said, I worry about what the next sanctuary city is going to do now that they have the Minnesota blueprint, because this is what was done. Most of those other cities you were talking about did not rise up in such massive opposition to ICE the way they did. I mean, not that there weren't protests in some of those cities, but not like Minnesota. What is it, do you think, that made Minnesota different from Chicago or any other?
It's interesting, Bob. We actually did see it get worse and worse and worse across the country. So, starting out really the biggest surge being out of Los Angeles, we saw a lot of havoc, a lot of mayhem there. And then Chicago, that escalated even more. We saw even more vehicle rammings, those vehicle rammings, the weaponization of that deadly weapon being up 3,000%. And it kind of seemed like Chicago was testing ground for a lot of these agitators, where they started to get their tactics down. A lot of the same people that we were seeing out of Los Angeles were then going to Chicago as far as those rioters and those agitators. And then it kind of seemed like come Minnesota, they had their formula down. They knew the tactics that they were going to use. They had their communication down, and they had their message down. And so did those politicians have their message down. Of course, we saw those, tragedies out of Minnesota. And unfortunately, when you have mass assault, and when you have people obstructing, stalking law enforcement, and which are federal crimes, sometimes there are deadly consequences, and that's what we work all the time to prevent. But the very easy solution to this, Bob, is sanctuary city politicians. Let us in your jails. Notify us before you let out a violent criminal illegal alien, because then we don't have to have those surges. If you simply work with us, then we don't have to have a mass surge and large footprint on the ground.
Tricia, did it seem to you like they knew exactly what was going to happen? Maybe not who was going to get shot or when, but that there was going to be some sort of self-defensive pushback by the federal agents when they're being boxed in, when they're being surrounded, when they're being harassed, when they're being impeded, that eventually they were going to need to exert some force and some authority to regain control of the situation. Did it seem to you like, because they may be evil, in my opinion, you don't have to say that, but they're not dumb. They have to know that if you push the agents far enough, sooner or later, some violent conflict was going to happen. And maybe that was their goal.
Yeah, I can speak more from the PR angle of this, is that we saw that the tactics as far as provoking an officer and then cutting out what that provocation was, and then filming it, cutting it, and making it go viral. And so from a public relations standpoint, we're trying to get the facts, stamp out what actually happened. And by that time, it's already been over CBS Evening News and all over CNN for days. So I think that people knew what they were doing. These are highly coordinated. And I think that more is going to come out on where that funding is from and who is really leading these efforts.
Last question for you, Tricia McLaughlin, and I really appreciate your time. This has been a very, very thorough briefing on everything, and I appreciate that. Let's bring it home. You're an Ohio girl. I'm an Ohio guy. A lot of the talk is about Columbus, but more specifically about Springfield because of the Haitian question. Obviously, that TPS had expired, temporary protected status had expired until the judge issued a stay on that. If and when that expiration is re-implemented or whatever we want to call it or restored, and they have to go, if they don't self-deport, do you or are you aware of any DHS plans to have to come into Ohio and remove them or any other ICE operations in our state?
Well, we are in Ohio. We always have been and always will be. As far as a surge, I couldn't telegraph that one way or another, but I would say anyone who has temporary protected status, you do have a, finite time that you can leave. You can take advantage of that CBP Home app, get the $2,600 and a free flight, not necessarily home, but to a third country. We have a lot of great agreements to go to great other countries. That certainly is an option for people. But I think in general, the Biden administration and other administrations did such a great disservice to these people. Temporary protected status was meant to be used for just that, temporary, extraordinary circumstances. It was not supposed to be de facto amnesty. And so it really fooled a lot of these people to come in here when we don't have the infrastructure for it, when they were never supposed to be here long-term in a legal way. So I think that the great option with the CBP Home app, you get some money to go back and start your new life, you get a free flight home, and then you can come back to the right legal way. But we have to get back to base camp, Bob. We can't just have these different programs like TPS that have been completely exploited and really undermining the integrity of our immigration system.
Tricia, you worked for a period of time for Governor DeWine's team, right?
I did.
What do you make of his response to the TPS expiration? Because he basically says Springfield can't survive without the Haitian population. They've got to stay here. Does that surprise you? I don't know how closely tied or connected you might be, but what do you make of his thinking?
Yeah, I know that he has a close personal connection with Haiti, so I probably won't, you know, he's got to lead his state, but I think that the bottom line is that temporary protected status is not going to be a legal mechanism for these individuals anymore to remain in the country. They were granted this decades and decades ago. For an earthquake, those are no longer the conditions on the ground, and there are other locations that these individuals can go. But
It's so
I think
important.
Ohio's a great state. We have a great future, and I'm confident of the economic future for our great state.
I love that. And I agree with you 100%. And I think we've got a great governor on the way too in Vivek Ramaswamy. But I'm so glad to hear you confirm that too, because the argument for many as far as the TPS for the Haitians goes, you can't send them back to Haiti. It may not be an earthquake now, but it is completely war torn and ravaged and impoverished. And you send them back there, people are going to die. What you just said is so crucial, and people need to know that. It doesn't have to be home. It just has to be somewhere else other than here. And we have agreements with other nations that the Haitian population can go to. And that is what has to happen. So I'm glad you clarified that. Tricia McLaughlin, thank you for the great work you're doing for the country in DHS. And thank you for your time here. You've been more than gracious with it. I appreciate that very much.
Bob, thank you so much for having me. Great to see you.
God bless. Great to see you too. All right, there you go. That's Tricia McLaughlin. She's wonderful. And DHS is very are we. I love the fact that she's an Ohio girl or woman. She's a local, if you will, even though it's Cincinnati way. All right. Wow. That was a ton of information. I didn't know we were going to have that much, and I didn't know we were going to get that in depth, but that was phenomenal. And I hope we can all process that. I want to close today by getting into the chat and see what's happening with the crew. We had a lot of really important conversation in the early going that maybe has fallen by the wayside since the conversation with Tricia. So let me catch up in the chat and see what folks have to say. And don't forget, chatters, love you. Keep coming in with the strength that you do. And don't forget, bring people with you each and every day. And make sure to hit that like button. Hit that thumbs up button and hit that join button and hit that notifications button and hit that subscribe button too, or follow button, all of those. The follow button is really, really important too, because we got to get that number up in order to start to see the organic growth by way of the algorithms that see growth and saying, yep, that works. And they push it out to others. They're what's the word I'm looking for a computer to be ordered? They are programmed. They're programmed that way. So let's make sure we get some more people in and clicking the likes and feeding them the things that the algorithms like to see. All right, let's see. Protesting in the age of crowdsourcing is a game changer, says Charlie. DHS.gov takes you to, DHS.gov/wow. So maybe you can get to it either way. I definitely want to make those individuals famous. We hear about the criminal legal aliens. We hear about the gang members, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and so forth, as being the most dangerous of the most dangerous in the United States that DHS has to go get and ICE has to go get. Nobody talks about the terrorists. I try to. I point out that all of these people who came here during Biden, during all of those massive caravans and so forth, they were from other countries than Latin and Central American countries. They weren't just from the triangle. They were from the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Iran, all of them. Dangerous terrorists in the United States. And what she just said today was crucial. And I didn't even know 1,000 of the individuals that they have rounded up so far are terrorists, literally on terrorist lists, federal terrorist watch lists, who are in this country and plotting and planning, Lord only knows what. And now they're gone. Why? Because of the heroes, because of ICE, which is an organization we're going to be honoring. Please make a clip of this training ICE gets, as I know immigration lawyers who think they are not trained, and the SS. Yeah, but Lois Irene, they probably would not show the actual training. Or, okay, I see what you mean. Maybe you mean make a clip of this interview about the ICE training. Is that what you mean? Yes, I can do that. Because they're not going to show how they're actually trained. They're not going to do documentary style. Here's what they're trained to do, because that just gives the, enemies, an opportunity to counteract that. So, but I think I understand your meaning now, Lois Irene. So thank you. More competitive than Harvard, says the politically incorrect mechanic who finally showed up. Yes, I agree, Charlie. That was awesome. 220,000 people applying for 10,000 jobs. That's incredible. That means we have a nation full of patriots willing to defend this country. Let's see. The clients get rich, not the illegals. Good for her. Tell her to go worry about her divorce and trust fund cases and shut up. I don't know who you're talking about there, but obviously, is it Hillary? I don't even know who we're talking about. No, because it wouldn't be her divorce. Media pretending. This is the hard thing about doing the interviews. I can't read the chats, and I got to go back and catch up on what people see, what people are talking about, and quotes from folks. She is selective who she takes as a client. Again, I don't know who that conversation is. Again, I don't know who that conversation is with. We didn't vote for the Haitian importation. Wasn't told. Wasn't policy. What the hell, DeWine? Yeah, Mike DeWine has a connection there. Again, I've talked about this in the past. DeWine, back in the 90s, went down there and established relationships and ties. And his daughter, who died, there's actually a hospital, a medical center down there in her name. So he's got like this weird connection with Haiti. And in my view, he likes the idea of the Haitians coming to Ohio because they're making money in Ohio and sending it back to Haiti to help his new chosen favored people. That's what I believe is going on here with DeWine. But TPS, like Tricia said, it's temporary. It has to stay that way. One more, Jimbo. The woke politicians shove this illegal importation on us. You already said that. You posted it twice. Okay, that's it. That's all right. Thank you to Tricia McLaughlin and her team for making the connection work smoothly. That was a great conversation. Thank you to you for watching today. Oh, what do you say we go out on some cool AI vibe here? I always got to do it the best way I can. So we'll do that. Yep, there's the vibe for now. Want to remind you, before we dismiss class today, tomorrow on the live stream will be a huge announcement of our plans. We're putting together something that we think is going to be very, very effective and very, very influential and very, very inspirational. That's what our local unfiltered insiders met last night about. We've got a game plan put together that's going to, I think, be really, really huge. And you're going to want to be a part of it. And you're going to want to be listening tomorrow when I announce it, because that's when we'll put the RSVP tickets on sale online for the event that we want you to attend. You're going to want to be there. Trust me on this one. So we'll make that announcement tomorrow. So you're going to want to be here for that on the live stream. By the time, if you wait and watch this show later on the channel 24/7, the tickets might be all gone at that point. I don't know. But be here tomorrow for the live stream. And again, bring like-minded friends with you, and we'll make that announcement of what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be very, very successful. Okay, so having said that, don't forget to get into the local community and join us. Make that, like I said, kind of our social media hub, and post some ideas, articles, videos, things that you want us to talk about as well. And then if you are able to, go ahead and join the locals community as an unfiltered insider and support this show financially so that it can indeed exist and survive in the long term. We do need that help. We are not radio supported anymore. It is completely Patriot supported. So please join us in the local community. Thank you to also to AFP, our foundational partner, and thanks to Mark King and Keeping Medicare Simple. He was at our meeting last night too. Mark is a great guy doing wonderful work with people. Make sure you call him if you have any Medicare questions as well. All right, that's enough rambling. Let's say thank you for being here. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Don't miss this one. Tomorrow is going to be a big one. You're going to want to be here on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Thanks, everybody. See ya.